I'm happy to present Roger Sanderson to speak to us tonight. Many of you know Roger. Roger was here at the herd for
11 years.
11 years here at the herd, and then went down to the Discovery Garden in Dallas and was down there for what, about 10?
Well, what's weird was I was there for 5.5 years before I came to the herd. And then I was there another 7 years after I left the herd. So about the same time period in both places.
Okay, well, but we're really fortunate to have Roger here to speak to us on Texas native plants. He now lives in Alabama, so I guess you could talk about Alabama native plants too, but we probably would know.
They have totally different. In fact, I'm still trying to learn the native plants in Alabama. But,
Yeah, I'm sure it's a world of difference there.
Yeah, it's very similar to far east Texas, a lot of the same plants, but there's a lot of things there that are only, well, we didn't realize till we moved to Alabama that Alabama has more water than any state. And they have, they have more creeks and there are more aquatic species like fish, snails, clams, any kind of aquatic things. There are more species in Alabama than any state in the union.
Yeah, I know, like mussels and things.
Mussels, yeah, it's in fact, we got a grant on our farm, huge grant for the erosion into the creek that borders our property. And the only reason we got that done was because they were trying to preserve the fish in that particular watershed. Kind of the background on my creating this slideshow, I frequently do talks for the master naturalists for their annual meeting every year. And I don't know, a few years ago, I said, well, I could do one on snakes, or I could do one on butterflies, or I could do one on native plants. And the lady that's in charge of it, she says, Roger, if there's some way you could kind of combine those things. And I had never really thought about that. And I have all of these slides of all different kinds of snakes, all different kinds of bugs, all different kinds of trees and plants. And I thought, well, if I can show all of the different animals that interact with each of these species to show why you should plant this particular plant in your landscape. Now, I will warn you, like for example, if you got to grow a pawpaw in your yard here in North Texas, almost assuredly you're not going to have zebra swallowtails coming to feed on your plants because they're just not around here, even though the pawpaw is the host plant for the zebra swallowtails, but there's all these other things that, you might help out on this thing. So, and I've got so many slides of native plants that I didn't even finish with just, I have them arranged, shrubs and trees, and then perennials and annuals and all that. And I haven't even got to the perennials or the annuals yet. And already this program, the one that I gave at the Master Naturalist thing, was a 3-hour program, and we didn't finish it then. So what we're going to do tonight, we're just going to go through until we've, time's up, and we'll just stop at whatever plant it happens to be, okay?
You have to come back.
Well, that has happened to me. I have one on shade plants, and for some of these master gardener groups, and same thing. I had so many slides. They said, well, and they would have me come back and do the second half of them. So anyway, okay, so we'll do this. Okay, box elder. And by the way, if I have the locations of where I took the pictures of these plants, and I swear half of them are at the Herd Museum. all my years here. So box elder, it's a real fast growing tree. It's kind of a weedy tree. I'm really not that wild about them, but they do provide a lot of benefit. And a lot of people don't realize, you can tell by the seeds there that this is a maple, and it's probably the only maple. There's a few like the big tooth maple and a few others in Texas, but this is the one that's the only real native maple to this area. And because it has compound leaves, you don't recognize it as being a maple. But, one of the problems, you see the picture there of the box elder bugs, which I did take that picture here at the herd. And they can be a problem if you have a box elder tree, but then there are a lot of things that feed on the box elder bugs. So we're trying to provide as much food for as many other things as we can. And probably one of the prettiest things that feed on it is the rosy maple moth down at the bottom there. They're not real common here. They're more common, a little more common farther north, but it's just a beautiful moth. But it has really weak limbs, and so there are a lot better landscape plants, but this one is important. Well, it's not working. Maybe I have to point it. Did I go too far?
Yeah, this pawpaw.
Okay. All right. I think I mentioned the pawpaw a second ago. The zebra swallowtail is just one of the most gorgeous butterflies that we have in the state of Texas. And but the pawpaws really have to be kind of in a place that has high humidity. So they're not going to do well. Although I have a friend in McKinney that has several big pawpaw trees that he planted years ago, and they're doing pretty well for him. And there's a guy that used to work with the herd a lot that is a big butterfly guy. He has a farm up in Iowa, and he planted a bunch of pawpaws up there specifically for the zebra swallowtails, but because he's a big butterfly guy. But pawpaw is kind of an interesting plant. It has edible fruit that it's sometimes called custard apples. They're supposed to be pretty tasty. I've never had the opportunity to eat any of them, but there's now the pawpaw sphinx. I don't have. Oh, I do have a picture of it up there. I've actually found them in the Dallas area, but I'm thinking they possibly came in with plant material for landscaping. I don't know, but I've actually seen pawpaw sphinx around the lights here at the herd before. So, but it's really a kind of a neat plant. It's a tropical family of plants, and this is probably the farthest north of that tropical family that grows up this far north. Okay, the pecan, and I'm just going to say the pecan is basically a type of hickory, okay? And so you could also include all these other hickories along with this, but the picture down below is a walnut sphinx, and so walnut is related to hickories as well. So you get a lot of the walnut sphinx on the pecan trees around here. It's kind of interesting. The pecan is pollinated by wind, so it doesn't have a whole lot of pollinators associated with it. But as you well know from eating pecans, they're great for humans as well as a lot of other animals. But just take a look at how many species of critters feed on the leaves of a pecan. And you probably don't even know what that picture is, but this thing, I don't know if is there a light on this thing? Let's see. Yes, this is an underwing moth, and he is so well camouflaged. Underwings, there's basically two groups of underwings: those that have solid pink or red underwings, which gives them the advantage of, if they fly and a bird sees them, they see this bright color, and the minute they land, it's like they disappear because the bright wings are underneath. Now, the particular underwing that's in this picture, his underwings are solid black, which is kind of striking as well. But so there's the black underwings, and then there's the colorful underwings, but there must be 50 different species of underwings, and we have a lot of them in this area. Whoop, Now, how did I do that? Okay. Now, hackberry, and in my opinion, a lot of people have stated that the most beneficial group of plants for native critters are oak trees. But in my opinion, the hackberry is it for this area, this part of the country. There is everything in the world eats hackberries. In fact, I don't know if you can see. Yes, if I can. Well, come on. You see that there's these little bumps on there. Okay, and this one hardly has any. Most hackberries are covered with galls, little bumps that are on them. It's almost diagnostic. If you find a tree that's covered with galls, it's a hackberry. They are, and I did research on galls when I was at A&M, and it's amazing how many different species. I would bring them, put them in the refrigerator to try to chill them down, and then you'd open up the refrigerator. My roommates just hated me because all these bugs would come out of the refrigerator, even though I had them in bags. But anyway, in the fruit, when I would have my Boy Scouts out on hikes, I would show them that you can basically suck on the hackberry berries. They're very, very sweet, but it's basically a big, round, hard thing with just a sweet skin on it. So basically you're just sucking the skin off of it. But the birds just love them. And of course they spread the hackberry seeds everywhere. The hackberry emperor, and there's also the tawny emperor that looks almost the same. That's all they feed on is hackberry. Now the metal mark, that's more of a western southwest species, and it feeds mostly like on the desert hackberry. It's found out like Big Bend, places like that. So the snout butterfly, really a great butterfly, and it feeds on hackberry. Anything else? I think I've covered most of that pretty well. Redbuds, and those redbuds pictures were taken here at the herd, but you can see there's a lot of different things. The redbuds themselves, well, I used to teach classes on edible wild plants, and a lot of books would say, oh, the pods on the redbud, but I've tried to eat them and they're just too tough. But you can eat the flowers. The flowers are quite good. They're tender. Man, I'm going crazy with this thing. The IO moth, this is the female IO moth. She has the brown upper wings. The males are yellow. The little grape roller, it's a fairly common little moth. You see it a lot here in the Dallas area. The leaf cutter bees, you can see they cut these perfect circles, and they seem to really like redbuds. I don't know why, but that seems to be their favorite. I guess the leaves are tender enough that they can cut their little circles out of them pretty easily. So, and the Henry's elfin is a little hair streak that feeds exclusively on the redbud. And actually, what's interesting,
Roger, you mentioned it.
Trees typically grow 50 to 70 alternately arranged on the twig.
They're
oh, okay.
2 to 5 inches long with serrated margins.
Where's
The
that
leaf
coming
has a
from?
tapering pointed tip and an unequal base with 3 distinct.
Okay, yeah.
people.
Okay, if people will mute their computers, that would be nice.
Thank you.
Okay. I may have a picture of it later on, but the Henry's elfin. Oh, and I probably have it with the Mexican buckeye, because believe it or not, there's a lot of similarity between the Mexican buckeye and the redbud. And the Henry's elfin only feeds on those two plants, But what's interesting is the caterpillars are either green or red. And the reddish ones or pinkish ones feed only on the flowers, and the green ones feed only on the leaves. And if you take a green one, and try to put it on a flower, he won't eat it. He only eats the leaves, and the pinkish one only eats the flowers. But it's interesting that nature provided two different ones. So if the birds figure out, oh, there's green caterpillars on here, they won't recognize the pink ones or vice versa. So it's kind of a defense mechanism for that butterfly. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, there's a whole long list of different bees. I'm sure Carol knows all about all that, but that feed on the redbuds because they bloom so early, and it provides a source of nectar early in the season. Okay, I just put in the Gregg's hawthorn, but as a representative of, there must be 50 different species of hawthorns or Crataegus species. And in fact, they've always been a kind of a problem with taxonomists because they're really hard to key out the species, and they keep adding and subtracting species of Crataegus, but because they're hard to determine. But as far as a plant goes, this is a great plant for a home landscape. They don't get too big. They're rather small trees. They provide lots of fruit. The only one that has really edible fruit is the mayhaw, which is found in East Texas. It's a different species of Crataegus, but they all have little colorful berries. So they're colorful when they bloom, as you can see, and then they're colorful when they're covered with the berries, kind of like a deciduous holly. The butterflies just really love the flowers on them. That's probably good for that. The Texas persimmon. This one, it's native further west of here, and they have these little black fruits. In this picture is when they're blooming. But the fruits are small persimmons, about that big around. They're not very large, but they are edible. And one of the traits of most of the persimmons is they're dioecious. So if you want some in your landscape, you had to have both a male and a female tree if you want fruit. Okay, although just the female will provide you with the flowers. Let's see if there's anything. Some of the butterflies mostly feed on the flowers themselves rather than the leaves. And I think, as you can see, there's a long list of mammals that really like to eat the fruit on the Texas persimmons. But this is, again, it's a small tree. It's perfect for a home landscape and has a kind of exfoliating bark on it. We used to have some here at the herd. I don't know if they're okay. Yeah, that's right. It's been a while, but I remember we had several. There were also some up by the SRC at one time too.
Still there. My husband showed me a picture today.
Well, good deal.
He said that they were all over the walkway, like something had been eating them and then dropping the leaves and stuff. So,
Well, it'd be good. It'd be good. In fact, the conversation I had with this gentleman earlier was talking about Illinois, and in doing the research for this, Illinois has done the best job of this kind of thing, of recording every single pollinator that comes to every single kind of plant. There's evidently kids that have in college that have done research on them, and so a lot of the information that I have is actually from Illinois. If the plant is found from here and in Illinois, that gave me a way to determine some of the information, which is another comment too. I started this project And the longer that the project went on, I kept finding more and more sources of information. So by the time you get to the end of it, there is so much there, you can't even keep up with. Here, we're still at the first of this, which is limited information, but it gets more and more information as I learned more and more sources of information. So, of course, the persimmons are really good for people to eat, but as anybody that knows about them knows, you have to wait till the first frost till they start to rot a little bit. Otherwise, they just pucker you up. It's really bad, but they're very delicious. I had one time was planning on making some jelly or something out of it, but I guess the old settlers knew little tricks on how to extract the pulp from the seeds and the skin and all that. But anyway, we never were successful in doing that. But people that know do it all the time. So let's see. Don't see anything that was just like the Texas persimmon. They're dioecious, so they require a male and a female. One other thing, as far as the landscape goes, they have the most beautiful bark on their tree. It's a really almost a black, deeply furrowed bark, and I love them. Even if they never produced any fruit, they're just beautiful trees. Now, one negative thing is they're also pretty bad about suckering. In fact, if you find some in the woods somewhere, usually it's a whole group of them or a field. You'll see a whole pile of them in one area because they tend to sucker out from each other. Okay, the sandpaper tree. They're fairly common. You get down in the South Texas coastal area, they're pretty common down there. And I thought they wouldn't be cold hardy up here. But then when I went to work at Texas Discovery Gardens in Dallas, in their parking lot is a huge one. It's been there for years and years and years. So they evidently can take the cold here. But they have edible fruit, and they get that name from the foliage it's rough, just like sandpaper. But they also have these attractive flowers on them. And the Anaqua tortoise beetle it's specific for that particular plant. But of course, if you planted one here, you probably wouldn't have any of those on your plants unless they were on there when you brought it in. So, but as you can see under birds, all these tropical birds just go crazy for this plant. So the fruit is eaten by all kinds of birds, and you probably won't have those particular birds in Dallas, but all the native birds here would love them as well. The fragrant ash. We used to have one here too at the herd that was up by the SRC, but I don't know if it's still there or not. The first time I ran into this plant, I was hiking the trails in Big Bend, and I see this tree just covered with flowers, and I go, wow, what is that? And then I looked it up, and they said it was an ash. And I'm going, ash trees don't have flowers on them. But this one does. It is just knocked down gorgeous. The pictures here are from one that's at Texas Discovery Gardens, and every year it's just, you can't hardly see the tree from all the flowers on it. It's just, there's another tree that's in East Texas. I love the common name of Grand-C graybeard. Looks just the same, but it's a different genus. But I was amazed that this is actually supposed to be a true Fraxinus. And one of the butterflies that feeds on it is the two-tailed tiger. And that's actually a caterpillar I took up in the top of the mountains in Big Bend. I couldn't believe that wasn't anything out there, and there's that caterpillar crawling along, but that was the caterpillar for that butterfly. So,
Very cute.
but this is a really drought tolerant plant, and I don't think it's that commonly available. But I do know of a couple wholesale nurseries that have typically grown it, so it should be available. And I mean, it is a real showstopper when it's blooming. Okay, walnuts. And now I'm seeing that some of the pictures weren't arranged quite right. You're missing part of the name on the caterpillar. Wouldn't that caterpillar scare the heck out of you? And it's not little either. I grew up with them, and the caterpillars are probably, you know, this long when they're fully grown. They're huge, and they have all these big old horns on them, but they can't hurt you at all, you know, other than wiggling around and trying to, you know, be ugly. But and the moth is one of my favorite moths. As a kid, I was a big butterfly collector and moth collector, and this was on the top of my list. They're the most beautiful moths. They're big, group of moths called saturnids, and they feed on hickories and walnuts. And the walnut tree, it does have one negative aspect as far as a landscape tree, because it produces a chemical that inhibits other plants, some plants, from growing underneath it. So you'd have to be careful on what you're trying to grow underneath the walnut tree. There are some plants that it doesn't bother at all. And if you get online, they have listed all the plants that can be affected by it, by the walnut. And you can eat them, but like one of my neighbors in Alabama, I mean, he gathers them up every year, and they crack them and they have just tiny little crevices that has the actual meat in there. They're delicious, but the work it takes to get them out, I'm sorry, I'm not that patient. And I remember in doing a lot of Boy Scout work, some of the Scout leaders would take the walnuts and put them in a bandsaw and cut a thin slice out of the middle of the walnuts, and that was their buttons. And they're hard as a rock, and they're most beautiful, intricate patterns. And they would just get rid of the regular buttons on their uniform, and they would put the walnut buttons on there, and they're just so pretty. And of course, the wood is wonderful if you're a woodworker. But in fact,
Is that moth found here?
Yes,
I've never seen that.
it's more common east of here. Actually, almost all of these really neat moths, or a lot of them, are becoming scarce because when they introduced what was it? They introduced oh, maybe it was a gypsy moth, or it was one of them, and they brought in these insects to eat the gypsy moths, and they took care of most of the gypsy moths, but they also interfered with all of our native moths. And so it's difficult. I don't know how many caterpillars of some of these beautiful moths that I've discovered, and I'm gonna put them in a cage so that they'll go ahead and pupate. And then before they can do that, all of these flies emerge out of them. They've been parasitized. There's some fairly common flies that parasitize them. And so they have to, that's why you don't get a whole lot of them on one tree. The adults, just put one egg in this tree and another one maybe a mile away. They try to disperse them out, which, by the way, what is wrong with this pointer? Here it is. I don't know if you can see the antennas. I can't really. Yeah, that one is a female. The females have a very thin antenna. In the males, it's a real broad feather, and they can find a male can find a female many miles away, it's just phenomenal how they can pick up such a minute amount of the pheromones from the female, but they do. Let's see if there was anything else. We have walnut trees all over our farm. In fact, they almost become a nuisance because they grow very, very fast. But they can be majestic trees, though, as far as the landscape goes. Okay, I just have the weeping juniper. This was picture of one I took in Big Bend, but this represents all kinds of junipers. And the juniper hair streak, which is one of the few butterflies I know of that are green. It's just so striking. And they only feed on junipers, which includes our red cedars. A lot of people don't realize that our cedar trees are really junipers. They're not cedars, but they do provide food for a lot of different critters. You can see there's a pretty good number of insects that feed on junipers. And the berries, there's a bunch of birds that really like the berries. In fact, I don't think, well, we'll see if I've got another one in here. No. Okay. Prairie crabapple. We did have some here. I don't know how well they're doing. We had one that we planted right beside the greenhouse at Texas Discovery Gardens. And man, it's so beautiful because as you can see in that picture on the left, you get the mixture of the white flowers with a little twinge of pink, but the buds are just a dark pink. And so you get that color combination, and they're just awesome plants. And the apples are probably, I don't know, that big around. They're pretty good size apples on them. The only problem, I planted one at our farm in Alabama, but I've noticed it is susceptible to cedar apple rust a little bit. It's not as bad as our apple trees are, but anyway, it's just a beautiful native plant. And there's probably one of my favorite moths is the Cecropia moth. I have one in my collection. I remember I'll never forget the length. It has a 9-inch wingspan on that thing. And the colors are just knock you out. They're just beautiful. But on my whole life, I think I've only found 2. I mean, they're pretty rare to find. But and these kind of things are becoming even more scarce with the way the environment is and the chemicals and the lack of habitat. So let's see, anything else? Anyway, if you kind of, as most of us are, trying to grow mostly native plants, here's one that flowers beautifully, provides you with fruit, provides things for all kinds of insects. It's just a great small tree. It doesn't get really large. Okay, honey mesquite. I fell in love with this tree at the University of Texas, where I went to school. They use a lot of native plants in their landscape, and always have, even back in the 60s when I was there. It's the mesquites, if they're in a landscape, they have all this character to them that just makes them beautiful. The average farmer hates them because they suck all the water out of the property, and they have thorns and stuff, so the cattle don't really like to eat them. However, the fruit on this thing, they actually had done research, it's probably 30 years ago or more, on the fruit, and we're trying to breed them for higher sugar content. And they had them up to, I think it was 80 or 90% sugar. I mean, they're really sweet, the pods on them. And so being a big sweet pod, you can just imagine all the different animals and birds that like to eat them. We had one right outside my window in my office when I was at Texas Discovery Gardens, and I would see all the different birds and things that would come in, be in that tree. So, and a lot of times, me included, it's hard to discern the difference between a mesquite and all these acacias. There's so many different kinds of, and now they've even taken them out of the acacias. They have other genera names that they've changed them to. But anyway, the way to recognize the mesquite is each leaf comes out as a single petiole and it forks into two. And so, and that's then off of those two is where it has all the little leaflets. But it's basically a single stem that's forked. And, you know, there it is. You see it comes out and then it forks into two. And the acacias and stuff don't do that. So this helps you key it out as far as recognizing what it is. And the flowers are sweet smelling, and so many pollinators are on them, like the long-tail skipper there. So, and there are certain things like the mesquite bug that's specifically on mesquite trees. But they're just great trees. Y'all come back now.
Appreciate your patience.
Good night.
I think y'all.
Okay. Mexican plum is just a great tree. Now, there's one drawback to Mexican plum, and that's the plums. There was a church right behind, when I lived here in Dallas, there was a church right behind us, and they had them all along the edge of the parking lot. And man, when they would produce, the fruit would be all over the sidewalk, all over the drive. It was messy. So it's a good tree to put in the back of your yard, not up close to your driveway or your sidewalks and stuff. But the flowers just knock your socks off. They're just beautiful in the spring when they're blooming. And of course, a lot of things eat the fruit. Supposedly, people make jams and jellies out of them, but I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of work to me. Another beautiful moth is the Promethea, which feeds on a lot of other plants as well, but it does feed on the Mexican plum. And it's just a great tree. There's one item you need to look at too. It says at the top, it's a medium non-suckering flowering tree. There's a lot of our native trees are really bad about suckering, but this is one that doesn't do the suckering. Okay, escarpment black cherry. And I don't know if they're still out in the front. Is it still out there? Okay, good. And of course, the escarpment black cherry is just basically a variety of Prunus serodina, which is just the native cherry tree. Our farm is covered with cherries, but they're not the escarpment, because the escarpment cherry is more of a western variety. But they do get the little cherries on them, and the birds just love them. And as you can see, the flowers are very, very pretty. I think that covers that. There's 1,000 things you can look at in there. Chitomwood is one of my favorite trees. Of course, they changed the genus name from Bumelia to Sideroxylon. It'd been Bumelia all my entire life, and then they had to go change it on me. But there's actually several other species of Sideroxylon. But what I like about this tree is the new foliage. When it first emerges, it has a silvery down on the underside of the leaves that it's just so striking. It's almost like a silver tree when it first starts leafing out. And I used to tell people too, unlike the live oak, the leaves look just like a live oak leaf. But the live oak is evergreen. And so if you get a big ice storm, the live oak just falls apart because the ice breaks everything. Well, this is deciduous, so you don't have that problem. But the leaves look pretty much like a live oak. And the fruit, I've tried to eat the fruit and it didn't really agree with me, but supposedly you're supposed to be able to eat them. And I think this was one of those, this may have been what they called stretchberry, although there's several other native trees that they call the fruit stretchberry as well. I think some of the smilax, the briars are sometimes called stretch berries too, but that's because if you tried to chew on them, it added more of a chewing gum texture to it. But the other thing is the reason they were called gum bumelia is they would ooze a sap out, and people would actually chew on that sap. So, and the bumelia borer, I think most entomologists call it the most beautiful beetle in Texas. They are just so striking to see a solid emerald green borer like that. And the Elo Sphinx is not a real common sphinx around here, but it is very, very pretty. And let's see. Oh, it's kind of interesting. When I first started learning plants, there's a little book that was put out by the Texas Forest Service and has great pictures. It was just the perfect book for a kid to first start learning. And it had actually a little key to it. And what would always mess you up was it would say plants with thorns. And unfortunately, with the bumelia, sometimes they have thorns and sometimes you really have to hunt around to find a limb that has a thorn on it. So it's not that thorny that you really can tell. Sometimes they have quite a few thorns, but often, like in this picture, I don't see one thorn on there, but they do occasionally have thorns. And actually, this particular plant I took at our house in Red Bay, Alabama. It also is in East Texas, but it ranges all through the eastern United States. But again, just like the gum bumelia, it's closely related, and the birds, I mean, they will. I had at one point the one in Alabama, I was going, oh, the berries are all green. I'll have to come back next week and get some when they're ripe. When I came back, there wasn't a berry on the tree. The minute they turned black, they just started. The birds just consumed them. So now, both of these species have a problem. There is a species of moth that's kind of specific for them, and frequently they will just denude the whole tree. You'll go out one day and it doesn't have a leaf on it. They just explode a population, eat all the leaves off of it. They'll put out all new leaves again. But you just imagine how many birds it's fed, but that many caterpillars all over it all at one time, though. So it's a very beneficial thing, but that would be a drawback as far as a landscape tree goes, when every once in a while it just doesn't have any leaves, looks dead, you know. But anyway. And the prickly ash, and that picture I took here at the herd, which I was telling somebody a little while ago, before I gave my talk, I walked around out there, and I had designed and built that butterfly garden and the butterfly house when I was here. And I had a little bitty toothache tree that I planted. It was about this tall, and this giant swallowtail kept trying to lay eggs on it, and I'm sitting there trying to, because it didn't have enough leaves to survive, you know, one or two caterpillars eating on it. And so I was trying to protect it. And now you can walk under the shade of that tree. It's huge now, but it kind of gives you a good feeling something matures like that. So, and the thorns on this thing, each of these kinds of thorns, this is only on older trees do they have these big pyramidal thorns on them. But as a kid in Scouts, we would, if you take the thorn and wiggle it, it slides off. And it's flat on the other side of it. And we would lick it and stick it on our knuckles and walk around like we were mean, you know. But and a lot of people that aren't familiar with it, it really is the toothache tree. If you chew on a little bit of the bark, I mean, it numbs your mouth. And I would always do that with my Scouts, you know, and I tell them, I didn't say it was going to taste good. I'm just telling you, it's kind of interesting, you know. And another interesting thing, when I started working at Texas Discovery Gardens, we had one in that butterfly garden, and I noticed the birds just went crazy over the seeds on this thing. And I had not heard of that before. I didn't realize it was a good bird tree. And somewhat at the same time, my wife is a gourmet cook, and she really enjoys doing a lot of Asian cooking. And a lot of the recipes called for Chequan peppercorns. And for many years, we couldn't get them, and we didn't know why. They even in the Asian markets around here, they didn't have any. All of a sudden, one day we were in the Asian market, and there they were. So I looked on the ingredients on the thing, and I know now why you couldn't get them. The USDA was banning them for labeling problems, because they are not peppers. They are xanthoxylum. They are the Asian relative of our prickly ash. And what they are is not the seeds, but the husks that are on the seeds. And they do have a little of that numbing to them, like you get from chewing on the bark. But they put a little bit of it in a lot of the Asian dishes, and it gives it a little pick, a little kick, like a peppers and stuff. But I never knew that. And so this way you can collect the seeds if you want to, but if you save the husks, you can use those for a spice as well. Let's see. Oh, and the giant swallowtail up there. Whoop, went and did that again, didn't I? I can get this to go. Yeah, this is the giant swallowtail, which growing up as a kid, there was only one, but I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, they divided them into two, which basically the eastern one is on one side of 75 and the other one's on the western side of 75 or whatever. But anyway, we now have 2 species of giant swallowtail, but they are big, and their caterpillars feed exclusively on things in the citrus family, and this is in the citrus. So if you have a potted orange tree or something, you'll get the caterpillars on it too. But it's kind of a neat little tree. Okay, we already talked about the Mexican buckeye back when we did the redbud tree. And you can tell the flowers are kind of the same color as redbud flowers. And here's the little Henry's elfin down here that I was telling you. It has the green caterpillars and the pink caterpillars. But it's a really neat plant. And even in the winter, when the leaves are gone, you have these attractive little pods hanging off of it. So it's just a beautiful little tree. It gets to be I presume we still have one in the middle of the garden out in the front. But it attracts all kinds of butterflies, and it's just a low maintenance. It'll take all kinds of drought conditions without any problem at all. Just a wonderful tree. This really ought to be used. They need to really push it as far as landscaping goes, because I don't think there's anything really better for the Dallas area than this guy.
Roger. Oh, 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Okay, well, I might get another one in here. I've got several different acacias, which now I've got this phainopepla, which is a really neat bird. You see them out in West Texas, Big Bend area. But they're also sometimes referred to as a mistletoe bird. And that during the winter months, that they almost exclusively are eating mistletoe growing on the acacia trees. But you can't have mistletoe without the acacias. So it's, if you want phainopeplas out west, you really have to have a few acacia trees growing. And as you see up at there, the Latin name, they've changed the acacias and split them up into several other genera, unfortunately, and trying to keep up with it all is maddening. But they're great, really extreme drought tolerant plants. But there's all kinds of birds that eat the fruits on them. And there's a cat claw acacia, which is another one, which, by the way, this beetle down here, you can see how it mimics the tarantula hawks. We've had tarantula hawks right out here in the garden before, going after the tarantulas we used to have. I don't know, they still have a lot of tarantulas around the Herd Museum. But what was interesting to me, the first time I found one of those beetles, I was in Big Bend and I looked at it and I'm going, why would a bug be this colorful? It's just going to get eaten up by everything else. And I hadn't but uttered those words, and I looked down and the ocotillo was in full bloom and the ocotillo flowers were all over the ground and the same color as the beetle. I was going, oh, it's got a perfect disguise. It looks like all the ocotillo flowers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And there's we get these black witch moths here in Dallas periodically. They're big, and actually they're found, I guess, far north as Illinois and up that way sometimes. But they feed on acacias. So those are moths that flew that far north. But they are really, I mean, these are big moths. They have a wingspan about like that. They're huge. So maybe we'll end with this one, I guess. This is really one of my favorite plants. We had a bunch of them in the front garden at Texas Discovery Gardens. And as you can see, the monarchs just go crazy, and they bloom at about the time that the monarchs are flying. And any of the mist flowers are loved by butterflies. And this was some, I think I took that down at Bamberger Ranch, and there were so many different butterflies all over that plant. But it's one of our best native plants. And in the Dallas area, it's pretty much evergreen. And it just, no maintenance and lots of flowers. So it's just a great plant for a Dallas landscape. Okay, you can see we only got through the A's. Because I have them organized alphabetically, of course, to the genus names, and we got to go through, B, C, D all the way through. So it shows you what tiny bit you got to see. But anyway.
Well, thank you, Roger. Really appreciate that. So let's move on to questions, and we'll start with, there's a couple from the online audience, Roger. And the first is, does the emerald ash borer attack the fragrant ash tree?
I would assume it would. I don't know if we've had them. They would be less likely than some of the other ash trees because they would have to go out west. But I presume that the emerald ash borer attacks all ash trees. So I would say it probably would, but hopefully it would have to go a long distance without any ash trees to locate the native population, since they're more of a desert plant. So I would say in its natural habitat, it's less likely than the ash trees here in the Dallas area and here eastward, where there's so many ash, which, by the way, I remember when they first discovered them, they were telling people to collect the seeds off of their ash trees. So you're preserving the genetic differences for your own little location, so that if they can ever find a way to control the emerald ash borer, then all these, they'll grow them again and we'll get ash trees again. But I have seen them. I was at a horticulture conference up in, I guess it was Canada. It was way up there. And all their trees, the tops were devastated, and then they would resprout from the bottom for years. They resprout, but the borers just totally ruined the trees. I mean, it was so sad.
Okay, the next question is, do any of these plants do well in heavy blackland prairie clay soil that drains poorly?
Actually, I've been pleasantly surprised. Planting almost anything in Dallas, this clay soil, if you mound it up a little bit, which provides a little bit of drainage, it's amazing how, I mean, I've grown the red buckeye. We have some red buckeye here on the property at the Herd Museum. So many East Texas plants that you would think they normally grow in sandy soil, they would never live here. But a lot of these plants, now, when you plant something and you know it's from an area that has really good drainage, if you'll add a bunch of sand in there and try to mound it up to improve the drainage, that'll help. But yeah, it's trial and error, but
Can be done.
Mhm.
Okay, any questions from the room? If you
Yes,
could
ma'am.
repeat, and Roger, if you could repeat the question.
Okay.
Stan.
I have a question about suckering. So is it, for the tree, is it good or bad? What is the strategy? Why does it do that? And then in the landscape, if you remove the suckers, the little trees that sprout up,
Mhm.
is there any way to get?
Okay, I'm going to give you my solution on that. She asked about the suckering on the trees. Why do they do it, and is it beneficial for the tree, and will it hurt the tree if you remove the suckers? And probably the tree that really comes to mind, which we didn't get to here, was the rough leaf dogwood. It's a beautiful tree, but I learned here at the herd by brush hogging the prairies, which was part of my duties when I was here. They would sucker so bad that pretty soon you had an acre probably of all the same one tree that just kept suckering out every time you cut it. And that was a big problem. And it is a problem in a home landscape because they do sucker tremendously. A lot of different species do that, and it helps them as far as, particularly if it's something that maybe gets browsed by cows or deer or whatever, where they can come back easily. So it's beneficial for them to sucker like that. They just get bigger and provide more foliage to photosynthesize to feed them. Okay. What I have done, I've had pretty good luck with, is I cut all the suckers off, and then you can get landscape fabric and have it go all the way to the trunk. And unfortunately, sometimes I've had landscape fabric this far out from the tree, and the suckers are coming up outside of the landscape fabric. But it does a pretty good job of put landscape fabric down and then cover it with a mulch so you don't see the fabric. It just keeps them from being able, they can't protrude through that fabric. Now there's cheaper landscape fabrics that don't do a very good job, but most of the fabrics are pretty good about stopping the suckering from coming up underneath them, because otherwise it is a maintenance problem of at least once a year you have to go in and cut all those suckers off, or it just looks ugly. Okay, any other questions?
Any other questions here? Any other questions, the virtual audience? Yeah, all right. Well, I think our last thing is our our drawing here for the in-house, but yes, thank you, Roger. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We'll have to have Roger come back to finish up the A's and get to the B's, and then I don't know about the rest of the alphabet, but we'll work, and that's just the trees here in the shrubs. So I thank everybody for coming out, and hopefully y'all stay cool. If you're working in the yard, do it early in the morning. It's too hot to work in the afternoons. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.